So this is my part two of my pretend 2.206 that I should have done yesterday. And there's a lot of commentary going on here, so you know it's a lot longer than I would have. It would have been if I was giving my presentation to the NRC. So I get us back to let's talk about the blizzard, the Nemo blizzard that happened on let's see, event date 2/02 February 8th, 2013. So Pilgrim Station scrammed on a. This is the event report. Pilgrim Station scrammed on a loss of off-site power. Right? You know, this doesn't take an Einstein to figure out what's going on here. You know, if you go by a set of group codes and honor systems and rules and you know, ideologies and philosophies, if you all kind of coalesce around a set of those principles, standardize human behavior, what it ends up to be like, then if something goes wrong over here, over to the left, the same kind of events are being set up on the right, and stuff like that, and you know, that's what I was trying to talk to the NRC about yesterday. Everything is connected. Everything is connected. Everything, you have a response here, you end up with an action. You have an action here, and you have a response over here. Everything is connected, and once you start asking and looking for the world in the bigger picture, believe me, that's your life can never be the same again. So, anyways, right, Pilgrim Station scrammed on a loss of off-site power. All systems performed as designed. Blah blah blah. Off-site power was lost multiple times. The startup transformer has been declared inoperable. The licensee originally experienced a automatic reactor scram at 2117 due to a low reject with a turbine trip reactor scram due to loss of power. Off-site availability has been fluctuating in and out of the site. So, what this doesn't tell you, and I got this from the public relations guy, and I am certain that they are all we're talking to each other about their Mike Mulligan problem and stuff. What they don't tell you is that plant has been the power was fluctuating in and out. They got three lines that support the plant, or the plant supports the grid through two 345 kV volt lines, and one line that's like a 23 kV line type of thing, and stuff. Three lines. And during the snowstorm, the lines were having problems, and they were shorting or something. The NRC PR guy says trees are falling on the lines. You know, if you ever went on a 345, if you ever went out to a 345 volt, 345,000 volt switch yard, or followed a 345,000 volt, you would know that part of the design is that you have enough right of way that you never allow a tree to fall over on one of these big lines. So it's kind of, he said trees are falling all over the place and stuff on the transmission system. And I say, was he just trying to screw with me, or what have you? So before the plant tripped, the lines were tripping, and breakers were opening and shutting and stuff like that, and finally something happened that tripped the plant. They probably two lines tripped or opened at the same time, and they didn't have the power of the power of the generator couldn't be used out on the grid, and so they had a protective scram, more or less, and stuff. And to get yourself ever in a position where these lines, offsite power availability was fluctuating in and out. These big 345,000 volt lines. I wish I knew how many amps they went through there, but it's a lot. Do you ever see a 345 breaker open up? Do you ever see a disconnect? No. 345,000 volts, right? A disconnect is just a hard pole that actually acts as a line. And if you so you don't have any amps going through the line, right? You just want to disrupt the voltage in the line. It's like shutting a valve or stopping the voltage. And so they just move that disconnect out like that, and so that airspace is which shuts out stops the voltage. And you should hear the crackling of the electricity. No amps going through it, but that crackling of the voltage is something. It's huge, extremely loud noise. And if you heard it for the first time, you'd be running and stuff like that. It makes so much noise, and there's just so much energy. I mean, that's if you get to play with breakers out in a big switch yard like that. That's what you learn, that this stuff is an enormous amount of energy going through these lines. Even when there's no amps going through it, if you've been involved with so the power was fluctuating in and out of the plant during the snowstorm when the plant was when the nuclear reactor was going, and that should be raising the hairs on the back of your head as far as that kind of stuff. When I mean, that's a warning that damage, a lot of damage could be done at a plant, because you're always dependent upon a safety relay to protect you, and that type of stuff. And safety relays most of the time work, but some of our big accidents happen when the relays don't work. You see what I mean? When they're not calibrated right, or they fail to protect you. And somebody with a lot of experience would see failures, and would see the outcome of a relay not working, and see the damage that can be done with depending upon a safety relay to open and be protective. They would say that these enormous amounts of electricity and flows of water it's the same thing in a pipe or steam and stuff like that. They carry a tremendous amount of energy, tremendous, mind-boggling amount of energy and stuff. And so you as an operator, you're always concerned about that and stuff. And so I'm sorry that was a grid crisis going on, spiking electricity and dire shortages of electricity at the time this was going on. I'm sorry for that the rest of the community was under a regional grid emergency, and that they didn't know about it. I'm sorry about that, but I think you should run a plant You know, if you're stupid enough to create the grid like that and to create the conditions of an unstable power plant, the only way this is going to work is if you make people pay a price. Maybe pay a price as far as step into having to shut off electricity to hundreds of thousands of people. That's what they were kind of playing around with here. This is one of the worst emergencies in the wintertime that New England ISO, independent system operators, the guys that run the transmission system. This is the worst crisis they had in memory. They almost at a point of having to turn off electricity to hundreds of thousands of homes during this blizzard, essentially, and stuff. And so, was that behind the operators? They didn't want to trip the plant, right? They didn't want to. The safe thing would have said that the way the operator should have thought was, what is our historical record talk about with storms and stuff? What are all our reports? And then you start peddling through all the paperwork, and LERs and your computer document system, and there's spectacular search engines and stuff like that, and how you organize the information. I'll be back. And they can pick up just the right paperwork, 5 or 6 documents on how is the history? What is the history of switchyard problems and plant trips and severe weather and stuff? And if they would have looked at that history, they would have all agreed that at some certain point they'd never let that plant trip on its own and depend upon our safety relay. They would have figured out a criteria, and once those in that snowstorm, the power would have been fluctuating and stuff like that, they would have, they really should have many hours before the blizzard is prepared to shut down, and they should have shut down before the blizzard, because if they would have looked at the history of how that plant operated in blizzards and severe weather, they would have figured out that probably the plant's going to trip, and the safest way to handle this problem, the safest way to handle that problem is to engineering wise, design a plant to survive in the extremes of our weather, type of thing. That would have been the right way to design a plant. They can do that. It's really easy. It's a little expensive, but to us it's expensive. But to these guys, they operate in 345,000 volt systems, and that's equivalent, and that's the kind of money they play around like in a monthly time frame or more and stuff. And so these big numbers don't scare guys like me and you and stuff. And so if they would have seen the history, if they would have read the history, they did read the history. They didn't know what's going on there. They just chose to put the plant at risk and put their employees at risk and put their community at risk, and those that set this system up with the grid on the outside in this emergency, because the natural gas was throttled. We don't have enough natural gas, and we got over dependent upon the natural gas electric producers, and we've been shutting off plants in other areas, coal plants, and we've been making our grid unstable, right? And stuff, and in many ways, and so you're gonna create this situation, a poorly maintained plant and a poorly maintained grid and stuff like that. And the solution to this, because guys, we're in a dire emergency. We're gonna freeze hundreds of thousands of people So we're going to try and keep a nuclear power plant like Pilgrim running through a blizzard when they should be shut down. I don't know how unsafe it was, but if that kind of pattern keeps going on, right? We got through. We only had a trip of Pilgrim plant, but it didn't get into trouble. So we can do that the next time. And if you're successful 8 or 9 times in a row with this kind of behavior, one who likes to take risk, me and stuff, you're gonna fall. You're gonna eventually take a hit, and somebody that I like riding bicycles, and I like doing risky stuff on bicycles. I could talk to you about. I had a accident where I got a brain contusion because I didn't wear a helmet, type of thing, 3 or 4 years ago, and I got all sorts of dings and stuff, and shoulder troubles and wife troubles because she thinks I'm crazy with not having a helmet and stuff. And so, you learn after a while. If you want to suffer, you keep playing your little risky games. If you want to ride your bike, if you enjoy your bike riding so much, then you take less. You don't go for the thrills, Mike. You just like you're riding your bike, and you minimize the really risky behavior because you don't want to feel pain. That's what riding a bike does to you and stuff. But these systems don't learn that. It takes a lot of creating pain for hundreds of thousands of people at a time. Eventually, that's where these systems all head. And a bike rider, somebody like me, sits there and says, it's that first time you get away with taking a risk. Especially a person who likes the thrill of taking risks. It's that first time that sets up almost positively that that 8 risk events that I take is going to lead to a terrible accident and stuff. It guarantees it. That first getting away with that first risky thing, instead of paying the price of that, a little fall in the beginning, you just keep taking these repetitive risk-taking accidents or events, and you keep upping the risk quotient and stuff like that. And the next thing you know, you're in the hospital and you can't remember the address that you live at. When it comes down to that, that's when I had a concussion and all that sort of stuff. And the systems do the same thing, exactly the same thing. Is once they start going into this riskful behavior and getting away with it, you can guarantee something big's going to happen down the line. And so they should have, like I said, they should have. These are big guys with big educations, and they should have figured out that allowing the grid to be so poorly designed and allowing a power plant to be so poorly designed for the climate and stuff like that, people are going to get hurt either at the plant or in our society at large, whether it's freezing in your homes without electricity on a cold winter night, or whether everybody has to run away from a meltdown nuclear power plant and stuff, and so that sets us up to before the plant trip, they should have had meetings as the blizzard was approaching. They should have had high-level meetings at the plant in the NRC. And everybody should have had the LERs and then the internal documents, and they should have been talking. They should have been documenting. For Pete's sakes, if they were decent people, they would have done that on the line. They would have recorded it, that kind of a meeting, and how we discussed the approaching blizzard, and and talked about the pattern of plant trips and severe weather events with the Pilgrim Station, right? And they would have taken a decent decision, a safe decision, and the grid authorities 2 years ago, when this natural gas business was taking off and we became overly dependent upon it, they should have been having these meetings, and they should have knocked, what I'm talking about, having that amount of power, that they would have knocked heads and they would have, oh, we're defaulting to natural gas. Then you're going to build adequate sized pipelines. You're going to build adequate sized pipelines of natural gas and we as a country would have the horsepower to enforce. These pipelines are vital to our community. They're becoming more vital, and we have the political power to easily overwhelm all opposition to a pipeline, and we just get the damn thing done. We just build the pipeline. We don't have that ability anymore to do what's in our interest. The assortment of entities and interests. We can sabotage each other. Sabotage the natural gas guys, sabotage the nuke guys, and nuke guys sabotage the natural gas guys. And hey, if we each sabotage each other, we're going to drive the electricity prices through the roof and create shortages, and we're all going to be rich beyond our imaginations. That's what's happening here. But a plant, a wobbling, spinning top of a nuclear plant sits in the shadows with this kind of behavior and stuff. Everything fits together. Everything is dependent upon each other. Every other thing. So, a lot of all that fluctuating power and lines and stuff like that could have done a lot of damage at that plant if a relay didn't protect the plant and that type of thing. And that's just unacceptable behavior, operational behavior. I'll bet you there was criteria for when lines trip and stuff like that, a plant like Plymouth is required to quickly shut the plant down and disconnect from the grid in order to protect themselves, in order to protect society at large. Because you know what? You don't want to depend upon a protective device. You don't want a protective device to fail and cause widespread damage at a nuclear plant that would, for the next year or 2 years, or permanently shut down. That type of thing. And we would all be in a worse grid crisis without that source of electricity and stuff. I'm not making any statement on nuclear power or natural gas. I'm just saying the system responses to this would be terrible and stuff. So you don't want to, and especially, you should be able to analyze that on yourself. If they're doing it, analyze it and anticipate it based on power plant experience, and especially when you have the documents to remind you of how past events went, and your vulnerabilities and stuff. So that was the first day, and then right in the beginning there at 10:55 a.m. Offsite power has been restored to the safety-related and non-safety-related buses. I believe that they were heading shortly for another loop through the startup transformer via a single 345 kV line. So the 25 kV line and the 345, the 345 kV line, the two other lines had tripped for some reason. The other two off-site sources remain out of service. And one of the most riskful things you can do for a power plant, where it seems to be going into these loops, isolated from the grid not being able to power us up and stuff, and more and more, and longer and longer, without being able to connect up to the grid system and stuff like that. It's a terrible trend. So this is the second one. This guy is on 210 the notification day 210, yeah. So on Sunday, blah blah blah, 0% power. Pilgrim stationed line to off-site power by the startup transformer. A fault on the B phase of the startup transformer was experienced due to suspected ice striking the phase insulator. Oh, suspected. They didn't see the ice, right? Alarm should be going off in your head. They didn't see the ice. They don't know what caused the trip, but they suspect it's ice. What's causing that to think it's ice? What? And so you say, well, man, they got some records that is pushing them to that direction of ice somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Somewhere. And so we go on to the next on Monday. Then they lose the Joint Information Center. That's where all the stadies and the NRC and that's where they do their. That's where they. That's the emergency center. They lose that for some reason. And so the Nemo blizzard was only the fifth worst snowstorm the Boston area has seen. Around the Plymouth plant, there was a lot less snow. They had a lot less snow around the Plymouth plant and that type of stuff. Surprisingly, Millstone, I don't know, 100 miles away or less, they had more snow, almost 3 feet of snow and stuff, and they stayed on the line. They didn't get kicked off the line from Hurricane Nemo and stuff. And so how can one plant stay up on the line and one plant get tripped off and stuff? One plant has kind of not as much of a storm as it's advertised to be, and the other storm is the other plant is has a tremendous amount more snow than they do. Why does the lesser storm plant get kicked off the line and stuff? So so let's talk about earlier 2008-06 00. This happened. Let's see what it is. On December 19th, 2008 at 6:30 p.m. During a severe winter storm, an automatic reactor scram occurred with the plant operating at 100% power. And you know what I'm doing here? I'm challenging the integrity of energy and the Pilgrim Station. I'm challenging the truthfulness of the employees at Pilgrim Station and the NRC. And I'm saying, you can't be not truthful in 2009, or when is this, 2008, and expect the employees to be truthful in 2013. If you got a pattern of playing word games and releasing only information that wears well on you and stuff like that, and withholding information inappropriately because it reflects bad on you. I mean, there's an honor thing and a integrity thing here, truthfulness, and I'll tell you, as far as a truthful employee, I mean, they don't, this, in their risk calculations, they don't, this isn't really addressed and stuff like that, but, if you have an integrity in your troops and stuff like that, your safety systems aren't going to save you, because all of them safety systems are going to be degraded by untruthfulness. They're all going to end up, and I say this, the accident in front of us is, for a host of reasons, one by one, the employees of a nuclear plant, I'm not talking just about Pilgrim, is going to voluntarily, on their own, turn off all the safety systems until the point that a small perturbation in the nuclear plant trips it and and there's nothing to protect it. That's where we're heading here. There's a lot of using excuses and doing good for the community to secretly keep a plant up at power. This all leads down, this successful behavior all leads down the pike of turning off all the safety systems and allowing a plant to leak. So you start, severe winter storm. Are they? Is Pilgrim Station honest with that? The severe. What's the severe winter storm? And they. I looked this up, and basically it was a foot of snow, and that type of thing, and maybe a foot and a half of snow. That's a good. That's a hardy snowstorm, but it's nothing out of the certainly a normal blizzard or a small blizzard. But why do they use severe winter storm? Why do they want to put this thing? There must be something that they're trying to hide underneath all this, right? To use a severe winter storm. Oh, please don't look at our behavior or history and stuff. We face this. They're like the Weather Channel trying to sell consumer products. And everything's a severe winter storm. And storm of the century type of thing and stuff. What are they hiding by throwing in this severe winter storm? How come they can't be truthful and honest and say that it was a moderate blizzard or a weak blizzard and stuff? Why do they got to exaggerate the severity of the winter storm here and stuff? And what else will they exaggerate? And worse, this is not just me talking to my buddy next to me and creating an exaggerated story, which I do all the time. This is about putting that kind of information in federal documents, and you're required to be truthful and honest and full disclosure and stuff like that. Why do they get away with that and stuff? And remember I told you, when you take that first risky behavior, it's the first one that matters, right? When you first get in, when you take that first risky chance, that's guaranteeing you're going to fall off your bike and create a lot of damage in your brain. Believe me. So, severe winter storm. I couldn't believe that. What does a severe winter storm mean? The direct cause of the event was an electrical fault resulting from conductive snow and ice buildup on the non-conductive porcelain surfaces of the ACB 105A phase generator side bushing. The direct cause of the loss, a safeguard panel, was in a high rush transformer and some blah 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 blah, all that technical crap. Corrective actions were taken to evaluate and assess the switchyard, circuit breakers, and main transformer damage. Corrective actions planned include analysis of equipment design and modifications to reduce flashover and ground faults events in the switchyard, right? We had a vulnerability, and we're going to fix it. It'll never happen again. And certainly, a lot of this was a minor blizzard, and that's not to say that they had some high winds and maybe some sleet or whatever it is. But a plant like Pilgrim is supposed to be able to survive way more than that on the weather scheme, and it's not supposed to trip every time somebody sneezes, and that type of action. Is the Pilgrim Station and their power sources, that's what I'm getting down here. All that breaker, their lines tripping out on them, and two lines being out for so long, and all that sort of stuff. Is there something wrong with the transmission system? Is the transmission system around the Pilgrim plant throughout New England? Is it vulnerable to weather events? And certainly in this case, it's screaming that it is screaming that it is, And so, you know, so you got the grid supporting the plant that's unstable in blizzards, right? And then you got the plant itself that's unstable in moderate severe weather or moderate winter storms and stuff like that. But they won't admit it. That, you know, if you know, if that first statement at 1,800 hours during a minor winter storm, if they would have put that in the words, and they would say to themselves, "Oh Jesus, we can't let that ever happen again," and letting a minor weather event, minor blizzard, take out a plant again. That's shameful and it's unprofessional and stuff. That would have goaded them to have more widespread changes in the plant. But no, they had to say severe event. You know, it's severe. It's an act of God. It was. We haven't seen such a blizzard in 100 years, and so it's an act of God, and nothing we could have done could have changed the outcome of even having a trip. And like I said, you know, this is supporting a society. This is a piece of equipment that is supporting our society's needs and stuff like that. You know, if you know, everything is connected. If energy is doing it at Pilgrim, they're doing it all over the nation. If you know, essentially the grids run by a set of rules and codes and honor systems and all that sort of stuff, and you know, then everybody else gets to sit there and be comfortable and lying about the amount of natural gas pipelines and what condition it is. And you know, if I tell you the truth with the size of our natural gas lines in New England and stuff like that, and I'm not courageous enough to make the system change what's going on here. I want to go with the flow, and I want a good income, and I want vacations and new cars and all that sort of stuff. I become a non-person within the system, but so that I can keep my family fed in our mansion, in our expensive cars, and so you know, if that's what the system is driving us all for, and we're all doing that together, you know what I'm saying here, we're in tough shape and stuff like that. And is this severe winter storm, and they're doing the same thing, maybe not around a blizzard, but you know, are they minimizing the problem? Were they minimizing the problems in the past with how natural gas prices were translating our landscape, and how they created I consider it a California Enron here in New England and stuff like that. You know, if the ISO kind of says, you know, everybody can kind of, you know, you really don't have to tell us the truth. You know, you can kind of fiddle around and tell us half-truths. We'll never enforce truth-telling and stuff like that, and honor, and be an honorable person with integrity and stuff like that. You can all fudge names, and you can say that, you know, it's a whole bunch of you can withhold information for proprietary or market reasons, or competitive market reasons, or homeland security and all that sort of stuff. What kind of a world are we going to have if everybody does that? You know, I don't want to be held accountable, so I'm gonna hide in the darkened corners, and all of my activities are going to be hidden and stuff like that. And when I screw up big time, when I know I shouldn't have, and I'm going to be protected, what are we going to end up here in the United States or in New England if that's the way the system, this competitive market in New England is setting us up to be? What are we going to end up in if that's what, you know, the politicians have to play along? You know, they got to have big money supporting their staffs and their re-election campaigns and all that sort of stuff, and they got to, you know, most utilities, the utility systems and the power plant people and stuff get a veto power over all our politicians. You got to get past that hurdle of these guys, getting by these guys to be a politician. Nowadays, these guys got an enormous amount of money and influence and that type of thing. And most of the, you know, the staffs of the politicians, you know, they have a lot of utility people, way up utility people as advisors, advising the politicians on utility issues, and they advise. If they're astute advisors on the human condition, and in our society and public relations, because they're big organizations and they're people that have seen a lot and got a lot of human experience on broad lenses and stuff like that. They're invaluable to our politicians. And politicians wants to, go through life not making any waves and that type of stuff. And these guys kind of feeling out, knowing how human behavior is, helps these politicians to wiggle around and get past making a big deal and stuff like that. So what I'm saying is, and then the politicians, in order to get elected, they use a lot of utility people. They're in their staffs and as advisors and stuff like that. And so then they got to cater to they can't talk. They can't be out there digging for information, contrary information, and exposing wrongdoings, and creating the environment of transforming our utility system or our New England independent system operator and stuff. In the old days, the politicians would get a lot of votes if that's what they did, is make a lot of noise and raise hell and embarrass the hell out of the New England ISO and utilities and this market system we got in New England. That's some of the highest priced electricity in the nation. Nowadays, they're total politician. A politician is totally protected from the utility industry and the problems of the utility industry. In the last 20 years, especially in the last, when Bush came into office, and it's not all Bushes, believe me, it's not all Bushes. Obama's utility boys are protecting him too, and stuff like that. But there's been a pressure to hide a lot of things in the utility industry. I just think of myself as a young man in the 60s and 70s, and to say that we would, as a society, we would make our utility system so untransparent. It's almost a nation unto itself, as far as most of the information that's given to the public at large nowadays. I can remember being in war protests and other things, and to say, to have this feeling of what is ethical and honorable and stuff, and how I want my governments to behave towards me, and to see what's going on in the utility industry nowadays is an abomination. It's undemocratic. We've gone through, it's kind of, I'm telling you, it's kind of a fascist leading type of situation we got here with these big utilities, and they're dancing with the politicians and all that sort of stuff. And I'm going to hide information to make more money, and I'm going to hide information to have us have more influence and stuff. And then the natural outcome of this system is to have highest prices in the nation in New England, and to have a gift of natural gas, inexpensive natural gas, and to be in that environment of a new dawn of cheaper energy, and to sit here in the mother of all grid crisis in the wintertime. What's wrong with this picture? How does it end up that good people of the United States end up with this crap with electricity and the misgovernment and misregulation and a fixation on militaristic market type of activities and stuff like that? It just boggles the mind. We're all enemies, and so that's the excuse to hide information. That's the excuse for politicians to hide the information from us about the utilities. And that's the excuse from, we're one step away from their calling us all terrorists, and that'd be the excuse of hiding even more information and stuff like that. We're a lot different country than we were 2 decades ago or 3 decades ago, as far as what we see in our utilities and stuff. We've gotten too busy with our lives and the complexity of our lives, and this fixation on our media and flashy stuff and buzzers and bells and rainbows and stars and everything, diverting our attention from what's really important in our lives. And I tell you, one of the most important things in our lives is electricity, and we've So this is how you create a world where you're in a blizzard. Um, the grid itself breaks down and stuff. You're in a rather, the Nemo blizzard was pretty bad. It disrupted our transportation and stuff like that. But in no way, shape, or form should the transmission ever had breaking down. There's some sort of design flaw in that, and I don't know why Massachusetts had that flaw in their transmission system, but that portends enormous troubles for us in the future, as far as reliable and relatively inexpensive electricity. That's an indicator of severe problems, And then you got this grid emergency that popped out of nowhere, That's a sign that the politicians have not done their jobs. They got this go along thing going on, and they don't think we want to be bothered by problems in our electric system. And furthermore, everybody knows that nobody in the United States is it's a boring electric system. The media doesn't want to portray it in an interesting way and stuff. And we don't have images of people working in our electric system and the drama of maybe even programs in the electric system and the idea that we got a lot of programs on medical care, right, and law and order and all that sort of stuff, programs and stuff, and that draws our attention and stuff. But we don't have a lot of those programs on our the drama on our electric system, and they can't portray it in a way that's kind of honest and stuff, and it creates a interest in us with our electric system. So we've all we're not interested in it, our electric system, and so it's just, and the politicians know that and stuff, and so they're getting money from the utilities, and they're getting a valuable service with coaching with the utility people on political staffs and stuff like that, and so we just it's no wonder why the electricity is not more unreliable, and it's not more expensive. And we're heading towards more expensive because if it's acted any way it has been in the past, as far as closing their eyes and saying, "Oh, it's terrible, this electric shortage," and so many people making money on it, and jacking up the natural gas prices artificially, and jacking up the electric prices, and creating fear of destruction on the electric markets and the natural gas markets, buddy, we're in for a long haul. So they had ice fall on a component of the grid system, of the switchyard system. What was it? Main generator? Was it the main generator? The sounds like a breaker. So hey, well, accidents happen, right? One-off. It was a one-off in the worst storm of the century, worst blizzard of the century, right? Remember I told you paperwork is important? Here we go. The event occurred with a severe winter storm in progress with predominantly eastern winds. Oh my God, the eastern winds. Couldn't you figure that out, that was going to be a problem? And snow depositing at a rate of approximately 1 inch per hour. Oh my God. Isn't that kind of normal? I mean, an inch an hour, don't we all, in regular snowstorms, get that kind of rate and that type of stuff? Who's the independent guy that, besides the utility self-interest, that is going to characterize the severity of that winter storm? If it was shown to be less severe storm, they'd be more culpable, and they would be more likely to change their tune, right? And redesign their switchyard system so this wouldn't happen in the past. But they're putting this, the mother of all blizzards, storm kind of prevents the system from correcting itself. It just baffles the mind, really, when you get down to it. The direct cause of the ice and snow buildup on ACB phase bushing on the main transformer side. Main transformer side. So it's a main transformer breaker. And flashover result of a significant ground fall. Remember I tell you how much, a great significant ground fall, that in itself could be threatening to an employee. Oh no, it was built by Hitachi. Didn't they have something to do with the steam generator? Was that the guy? I don't know. I'm shooting. A review of potential design changes to improve switchyard resistance to weather-related flashovers. Corrective actions planned include the following: the review of potential design changes to improve switchyard resistance to weather-related flashovers. Modified and replace input breakers on the X55 and X56 transformer. Complete vendor evaluation of the transformer tap control board panels. So 2008, right? This has happened at 2008. Some ice caused a huge ground fault, and it tripped the plant. And then they said that we got a vulnerability with resistance to weather-related flashovers. They promised they were going to fix it, and then here we sit in 2014 in the fifth worst blizzard on record, and they have another ice event causing this time a loss of all off-site power. When they were the most vulnerable, in the most vulnerable position you can imagine, with a lot of the lines fluctuating, right? Only one line available when there should have been three, right? And at the worst possible time, the most vulnerable the plant's been in a long time, they have another ice-related ground fault. Does anybody see a problem with that type of thing? They promised to prevent that. On federal documents, they made a promise to fix that, and it happened again in a short period of time. But doesn't that bother somebody? It gets more sickening as you go down this thing. Similarity to previous events. Did they do a extended condition? No, they don't. These guys don't do that. Corrective action, extended cause condition. Did they do that? No. Should have been done. Extended cause condition investigation. Should have been done. Similarity to previous events. A review was conducted of Pilgrim Station LER since 1974. Documents. You know what? LERs are notoriously inaccurate. Remember I talked about that? And when you have to submit a document, is an extremely narrow framework. It's very infrequent. The industry paid for that and stuff, and so there's a lot more stuff out there. You're only seeing 5%, 10% of the events that go on here, or even less with LERs. So there's a lot of other events that, as far as weather-related stuff, that didn't cause a plant trip, but was screaming at you. We got troubles with the design of our switchyard and main startup and main transformer and startup transformer. They're not designed for any winter weather, and it's a severe threat to both the plant, nuclear safety, and our society at large by creating a unstable grid. And then you go another level, up to the grid, with all these lines shorting out, the 240, the 345,000 volt lines, and why they were tripping in and out. Why did they only have one line? Why at points did they have no, and stuff like that. It's certainly within the realm of engineering to harden those transmission lines, stuff a lot more, and it should have been there should have been standards that that forced Massachusetts to have a more hardened transmission system. And this questions, why, is this supporting society's well-being, having such a fragile transmission system, electrical transmission system type of thing? What does that say about us in the future? We got more storms and stuff like that, and maybe we got global warming, but maybe there's more severe winter storms and blizzards and hurricanes. What's going to happen? You think what's going to happen in a hurricane? I believe that a transmission system around the Pilgrim area is only designed for 90-degree winds and stuff. That's the design requirements. We don't know what they've actually. Hopefully, the engineers are smart enough to say, okay, these are the codes, 90 degrees. We're going to build it into a more hardened transmission system. We're going to build it to 130 miles an hour winds and stuff like that. Energy down south, it's 130 mile an hour codes as far as their transmission systems, and they had. That was my wife telling me the floor has to be done, washed. Instead, I'm doing this. So, LER, there's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, identify 4 identify events where reactor scramble occurred due to the effects of severe weather events, including lightning strikes and winter storms. What are all the other electrical events, switchyard electrical events that has occurred on Pilgrim Station and wasn't put into an LER? They must be riddled with internal documents about the problems with the obsolete Pilgrim Station switchyard and transformers and breakers to transformers and startup transformers and stuff like that. So 1, 2, 3, 4 since 1974. And another LER, the fault on a UA result in a load rejecting scram. So here we are. A plant scrams in a blizzard, right? We're under we don't have enough natural gas capacity in New England, and we got overly dependent upon. They seen us coming a million miles away. We got overly dependent upon natural gas electric suppliers, natural gas electric suppliers, and peakers and all that sort of stuff. We didn't build adequate pipelines, right, and stuff. And you see these. What's astonishing is you see these three. The natural gas guys can't. The natural gas market only works during the daytime. They don't work at night, and or weekends or holidays, and that kind of stuff. And these big generators that use natural gas, they have to order. They don't have some system that guarantees that they'll get the flow of natural gas and stuff when it's needed. There's no guarantee that they'll get that natural gas, right, in an emergency or anything like that. And I don't know why, they order it. I suppose, if they ordered a position, as far as on the gas line, a insurance policy and stuff. I think it'd be too expensive and stuff. And so they've got no system, in the grid itself. If you got a big, if you got an enormous heat wave going on, and you got shortages and stuff like that, then they got incentives to knock off big users of electricity, right? And if that don't work, if that don't work, then there's mandatory. You start taking off the commercial factories and all that sort of stuff, and you try and control the load that way and stuff. But on the natural gas market, they don't have that type of thing and stuff. And you see how the NRC, the New England ISO, they're a private entity. They're not a governmental authority. They're very weak as far as having authority to do anything and stuff like that. It's a private, non-profit organization. It's not a governmental thing. With the hammer of God to get people to supply natural gas to support our society in an emergency type of thing. We went to this private or weak organization as far as being regulators on the grid, or probably even on the natural gas system type of thing. And the grid authority doesn't really have a lot of authority to demand transparency and all that sort of stuff, and they probably don't have like a government authority could use what our Constitution and the form of our government, this system has allowed us to have our regulators, our police force, and stuff like that, to have ungodly amount of power if it has to support if a system has to support our society, like maybe our electric system and stuff like that. It's only authority that creates fear in a big corporation like Energy that makes them do the right thing if they don't want to do the right thing. You understand what I'm saying? It's only pure authority and power to make an organization independent from the politicians and stuff like that, to make them do what they should be doing anyways. And I see how dysfunctional a lot of government is and stuff. Believe me, I see it more than anybody else in a lot of the stuff I've been doing and stuff. It'd be easy going anti-government for me, but I sit there and say, well, Mike, is there something bigger than that? Is there an ideal that I can? One thing is an ideal of our constitutional ideals of transparency and authority to regulate our economy and the stuff that we really need. Those things are so important. Why can't we depend upon good people with enormous power and authority with good hearts and good spirits? How come we can't trust people to act in our interests? Why can't we? We give them power, and why does it automatically end up with they hiding secrets to protect themselves and stuff? Why can't people have this kind of idea? Well, I've gotten power now. It's the power that I have to use in order to create stability in my society and my communities and stuff like that. People have given me that power. Now, hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people, hundreds of millions of people have given me that authority. And I got to do what's in the interest of us all and stuff like that. And number one, I'm going to be transparent in how I act. And I am going to act in their interests, not in some sort of silly penny pinching deal and fortunes being made for many of my my future generations, so they don't have to they don't have to work and get lazy and stuff like that. Where is these people that that are trained and have this sense of a large vision and astonishing honor and integrity that run our governmental agencies and authorities and our politicians and stuff like that, and they're really acting in our interest. That's the world that I think we ought to live in, and not what we got now and stuff. And so I look and say, the ideal of the Constitution and openness in the legal arena, in the courts, and stuff like that. I know there's problems, but the ideal of that, our court system, a competitive court system, that is so beautiful, and both sides getting transparency and the ability to use power to create transparency and demand truthfulness of all the players and stuff like that. I love that. That's beautiful and stuff. I hate going to court and that type of thing, and I haven't had issues with the court system since I was a teenager. My wife's reminding me I got the floor to wash. She said I forgot to do it this morning. So, where did them people go? How come this system rots people's conscience, right? There's tremendous amount of good people in the system and stuff like that, and the system is rotting like the New England ISO, Enron. We're in the Enron territory, the California electric crisis as far as creating a power crisis in New England and stuff. We're there, and and the natural gas. It's all in the interest of spiking up gas prices and making a killing on our energy systems without really doing work, just being creative enough and intelligent enough to create a shortage of something. That's what our market is set up for, to create shortages, to make a narrow segment of a population to become rich and powerful. Where's the people that sit there and say, what is beautiful is not me getting rich. What is beautiful is serving our greater humanity. That's the most important thing. Now, I get a thrill out of serving other people. I really, it excites my brain. It makes me constantly go back to that, trying to serve over and over again to feel good again about being a decent guy, about being a decent woman, and serving us all, and making my children's lives better, and making the children of all the people around me, of my community's lives better. Where did that go? How did we end up so at war with each other and so bitter and so we all feel so threatened by the world around us? How did we end up like this? And stuff like that. How come that's what the natural gas market is, our electric market is, and most of the big organizations around our electric power sources have become, there was one time that we kind of all felt as though we fit into this one thing, the United States, right? We were all one, and we were the one of everything. We were part of the corporations, and we all worked together to create this nation, this enormously powerful and beautiful nation, and stuff like that. And we all felt as one. How does it end up that we all feel isolated and disconnected, and excited over violence and betrayal of robberies and all that sort of stuff? How does it end up like this? We're like that, and things. How come we got people in front of us that could tell us what a good life is, and how to serve other people, and not serve somebody trying to make a couple of pennies. Anyways, so we got through the Blizzard Nemo, and We got through that 2008 LER that talks to us about all the different areas where Pilgrim's switchyard and transformers have been shown gross indications of not being able to not being designed for the current climate and especially our future climate, and is fast deteriorating all around us. And the other thing that's important, as I said, that severe, sometimes you get clues how systems work by a phrase and stuff. It opens a window. The system is so complex you can't really see it, but if you see a little story sometimes and you read it and you kind of investigate it and stuff like that, and you say, like the severe winter storm, how come they couldn't be honest with us with that severe winter storm business? Why did they exaggerate it? And that tells us that these guys that don't have the instincts to tell the truth, they're putting a pretty face on everything, and it doesn't stop with the switchyard. It doesn't stop with the SRVs and stuff like that. That's a system that's involved, and a lot of people have bought into it. And you should be worrying about other systems and stuff that you can't see. We've all seen that a lot of investigators, accident investigators, and the big ones, the big institutional problems and stuff. They've investigated and walked around body parts strewn all over the place, destructions of hundreds of billions of dollars, and all that sort of stuff. And they all say to the one, we can explain the human behaviors, status, money, power. Those are the things that drive people and stuff, and it pollutes the policies and procedures. We all understand that. We understand how that all translates into putting up with obsolete equipment and fragile equipment and vulnerable equipment, and all the humans around to see that they're heading for an accident. We all understand that. We've seen it over and over again, and it's nothing new. It's actually quite boring. It happens over and over again. These big, many people dead, and hundreds of billions of dollars, trillions of dollars of accidents around us that cause innumerable human suffering and stuff. We can understand how the humans and how components get vulnerable and stuff, but the one thing we can't understand is there's a system under this thing that's spinning, and it's been in such a degraded and disgusting condition for so long. It boggles the mind to think that equipment ran for a decade, and how did it run in such a terrible and threatening, and it threatened so many human lives and our children's lives, and it threatened harming so many people, not necessarily killing them outright, but harming so many people. How did that system was so degraded and in a disgusting condition? How did it run for 10 years? How did it last so long? That's the shock and the amazement is not that accident comes out of the blue and bam, it's like running a lottery. It's that the system has been operating in such a disgusting, stinking manner for years and decades, and when the accident should have happened maybe 10 years ago instead of it happening now. That's the astonishment of a lot of these big investigators. I'm Mike Mulligan. Thank you. So that's two. I got more to come. This commentary business is killing me.